Hello friends, I hope you are all doing good. This is a small video which I am making with regard to the changes which have happened in the GST in this recent budget. If you are a student, please note that this is not something which is related to your examination. Maybe this will be applicable to your examination from November month onwards, but this video is made only for knowledge purpose. And for the other people who are watching the video, let me make a disclaimer before starting this video. The presentation which I am going to give you is with regard to the changes which have happened on in the recent budget, which was Finance Act 20 finance budget, which was given by Nirmala Sitharaman in the 1st February 2021. So what are the changes which are affecting GST? What are the changes which are made in GST by this budget is what I am going to discuss in this video. One more thing, this video is only for knowledge purpose. In this video, whatever I am telling is my opinion on these changes. It is not something, it is my view, not my opinion, I'm sorry. It is my view with regard to the changes which has been made. I don't consider, please don't treat it as to be an opinion, don't treat it to be an statement which is made by me. It is just for knowledge purpose. Those who are viewing, view it only for your knowledge purpose. It is just my point of view with regard to the changes which has made in the recent budget. So the budget, Nirmala Sitharaman gave this some budget speech on 1st February. On 1st February 2021, there was a budget, as we all know. Yes, sir, we all know, sir, there was a budget which was given. There are few changes with regard to GST, which is made in this budget. Apart from this only, every month, every 2 months, the GST council is meeting and they are giving some budget speech. Now, as of those changes was not less for us, they have given some more changes in the recent budget which has happened. Now, what are these changes? How are these changes going to affect to us as taxpayer? How are these changes going to affect to us as professional is what I am going to discuss over here. Now, first, so here the material which I have prepared is prepared in such a manner that first I have given the section number in which the change has happened, what is the particular with regard to that change, and what is the present provision, and what is the proposed change which is happening, what is the change which is proposed in the budget. Now, section 7 subsection 1, section 7 talks about taxable event under GST. Now, the taxable event under GST supply. Sir, what do you mean by taxable event? Taxable event is an event because of which you are paying the taxes. Under GST, that taxable event is supply of goods or services. Section 7 subsection 1 talks about supply. Section 7 subsection 1 talks about supply. It has totally 3 subsections, 7.1a, 7.1b, 7.1c. Now, section 7 subsection 1 clause A, section 7 subsection 1 clause B talks about supply with consideration, and section 7 subsection 1 clause C is speaking about the supply without consideration. What are the activities which shall be treated as supply even if there is no consideration involved? Now, in this recent budget, they have introduced a new subsection in section 7 subsection 1. What is that new clause? They have introduced a new clause in section 7 subsection 1, which is section 7.1a. They have introduced a new clause called as section 7.1a. Sir, what is this new clause, sir? How is it going to affect us? Before seeing that, let us read what this new clause is telling and what have they added in the section 7 subsection 1. Now, the new clause is read as follows. Section 7 subsection 1 clause AA, the activities or transaction by a person other than an individual to its members or constituents or vice versa for cash, deferred payment or any other valuable consideration shall be treated as supply. Section 7 subsection 1 clause AA says, if there is any activity happening between a person who is giving services or who is supplying goods to his members, provided the supplier should be any person other than individual. They are trying to talk about AOPs or body of individuals or any other type of person. Except individual, any other type of person who is giving services to their own members, those transaction, if it is for cash, deferred payment or any other valuable consideration, meaning what? There should be a consideration involved. The supply which you are making, there should be a consideration involved. The supply, that activity shall be treated as supply. This activity will be treated as supply. Now, they are actually trying to target association of persons, body of individual. Normally, under income tax, there is something called as concept of mutuality, wherein they say that no one can make money by giving it to himself. I have say 100 rupees which I am taking out from my shirt pocket and putting it in my pant pocket. Is that, will I say that I have earned 100 rupees? I have 100 rupees in my shirt pocket which I am putting in my pant pocket. It does not mean that I have earned 100 rupees extra which is there in my pant pocket. That is what was told by in income tax, that no one can make money by giving it to or spending it to himself. But here what they say is, if a group of people form an association, and if they contribute money out of that association, if association is purchasing something and giving it to the members, then that will also be treated as supply. That will also be treated as supply. Now, what is even more bad with regard to this is, they have given an explanation to section 7 subsection 1AA. This explanation says, we will forget, please forget all the judgment which is made, please forget all the other laws which are there with regard to this point. If any judgment of Supreme Court, High Court is there which is contradicting this provision section 7 subsection 1AA, please ignore that judgment. What is this explanation telling? For the purpose of this clause, it is hereby clarified that notwithstanding to anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, or any judgment, decree or order of any court or tribunal authority, the person and the members shall be deemed to be two separate persons, and the supply of activities or transaction inter se shall be deemed to have taken place by one person to another person. Now, what they are trying to target is, they are trying to target the people who are forming an association and contributing money, and they are purchasing something for themselves out of that association. Now, please note, what those who are resident welfare association, you should be very careful now. All the resident welfare association should be very careful, because this is straight away going to hit you. How, sir, it is going to hit us? Because the resident welfare association is an association formed by residents of a particular apartment. Now, they all contribute money for the common benefit of the apartment or the residents of apartment. They give some maintenance fees, etc. Now, whatever services is procured by resident welfare association for all the residents will be treated as supply. It will be treated as supply. However, there is an exemption given under the exemption topic. Up to 7,500 it is exempt. If it is more than 7,500, entire amount is taxable. Now, because of this particular subsection which clause which has been introduced, section 7 subsection 1 clause AA, even the ladies who are going to kitty parties, no, they will also be affected. Now, if the ladies have formed a group of themselves where they contribute money of say 500 rupees or 1000 rupees, and they celebrate it as kitty party, etc., that association which is formed by those ladies, they purchase some products. Say for example, there is a group of ladies who have formed the association. There are 10 ladies. Now, one of the ladies is having the party at her house. That lady, out of the money which is contributed by all the people, that lady has bought some say purse, wallets, she has bought some jhumkas, etc. Now, the other ladies are going to purchase this item. They are going to purchase this jhumkas, they are going to purchase this say purse, etc. That will also be treated as supply. That will also be treated as supply. Whether the association is registered or not, it does not matter. If there is an association who is giving services to its members, it shall be treated as supply. It shall be treated as supply, provided there should be a consideration. It can be in money or it can be any other consideration in any other form also, any other valuable consideration also. So, Section 7 subsection 1 clause AA is affecting association of persons or body of individuals who are giving services to their own members. Now, this was before covered under section 7 subsection 1 capital A, schedule 2 activities. Okay, it was covered under schedule 2 activities. Schedule 2 activities spoke only about supply of goods by an unincorporated association to its members. Okay, it spoke only about that thing. But now this particular clause, it talking about whether you supply goods or services, I don't care. Anything which you supply to your member, whether you are incorporated or unincorporated, I don't care. It shall be treated as supply. Then section 16 subsection 2. Section 16 subsection 2. Please note, unless until specified, all the sections which you are seeing are sections from CGST Act. Section 16 subsection 2, under CGST Act talks about conditions for taking input tax credit. Now, if you are a person who is doing the business, you can take input tax credit of whatever goods or services which are purchased by you for, or whatever inward supply is there for your business purpose, which is used for you in the course or furtherance of business. Now, there were some conditions. There are some conditions which is given under section 16 subsection 2. There were totally 4 conditions that the registered person should be in possession of tax invoice or any other tax paying document. He should have actually received the goods or services. The supplier should have paid the taxes, and the registered person should have filed the return. Now, there were these 3 conditions. Now they have added one more condition to it. They have introduced section 16 subsection 2 clause AA. Sir, what is this section 16 subsection 2 clause AA telling? Section 16 subsection 2 clause AA says that now a registered person should satisfy one more conditions for taking input tax credit. You will be eligible to take input tax credit only if this this 5th condition is also satisfied. Already we had 4 conditions which were there. Now they have added one more condition, and please be very careful. This condition is very bad. Why, sir, this condition is very bad? Because if the person from whom you are purchasing the goods or services, if he is not filing his return, you will not be able to take input tax credit. If that person is not filing his return, you will not be able to take input tax credit. This is a very important condition. Before we had only 4 conditions. Now the new condition has been added, section 16 subsection 2 clause AA. What is it telling, sir? The clause AA says the details of the invoices or debit note referred to in clause A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supply, and such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the specified manner under section 37. Section 37 talks about return of outward supply, which is GSTR1. Now the supplier will have to file his GSTR1 if the recipient wants to take input tax credit. If the supplier has not uploaded the details on of outward supply, the recipient, though he has purchased the goods, though he has received the goods or services, though he has the invoice copy with him, he will not be able to take input tax credit. So one of the important condition now will become the supplier should file his return for the recipient to take input tax credit. This particular condition is going to affect a lot of businessmen, because see, government on the one side says there are few categories of person who can file the return on quarterly basis. On the other hand, it says there are few categories of person who have to file the return on monthly basis. So if I am a person who is falling under the category of filing my return on quarterly basis, I will upload my GSTR1 on quarterly basis. If you are a person who is filing your returns on monthly basis, you will be taking input tax credit on monthly basis. I am a person who is filing my return on quarterly basis. If I am filing my return on quarterly basis, how will you get input tax credit in that particular month? Say for example, for Jan to March quarter, I am going to file my return by 30th of April. Okay, I am going to file my return by 30th of April or 13th of April. Okay, now you have purchased something in the month of January. You are a person whose turnover is more than 5 crores. You are filing your return on monthly basis. So because I have not uploaded in the month of January, the same will not be reflected to you in the month of January. The invoice will not be reflected in your GSTR2A in the month of January. If it is not getting reflected in the month of January, how will you take input tax credit? How will you take input tax credit? The basic condition or the basic idea of GST is gone over here. When GST was introduced, they said that we will get seamless credit. What nonsense seamless credit we are going to get by this? How will we get any seamless credit because of this particular clause introduced? Only if the supplier is filing, I will be able to take input tax credit. I would have made the payment to the supplier. It does not matter. Law is telling I don't care whether you have made the payment or not. I don't care whether you have paid the taxes or not. What I am concerned with is whether he is filing the returns or not. If he is filing the returns, I will give you the input tax credit. So this is a very bad condition. Now maybe over a period of time, maybe all the businessmen will start business andolans against GST, because the way the GST is the law is becoming complicated on day by day basis. They are introducing new provisions which is going to affect us only as professional and as well as businessmen. Next, section 35 subsection 5. This is something which most of the chartered accountant and cost accountants are hating. Section 35 subsection 5 talks about what, sir? Audit. Which audit? GST audit. Meaning, if you are a person who is filing annual return and if your aggregate turnover exceeds 2 crore rupees or some specified amount as may be specified, then you are required to file along with your annual returns, GSTR 9, you are required to file an reconciliation statement. If you are a registered person, you are required to file a reconciliation statement. I have given this provision over here. You are required to file along with your annual return a reconciliation statement. Normally, this section 35 subsection 5 told that this reconciliation statement which is filed by the registered person is required to be certified by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant. It is required to be certified by a chartered accountant and a cost accountant, and along with this reconciliation statement you are also required to attach the copy of audited annual accounts, etc. Now, what this clause which was there, section 35 subsection 5, is now omitted. It is now omitted. Now the government is telling that you don't have to get any reconciliation statement from chartered accountant or cost accountant. You don't have to certify anything from chartered accountant or cost accountant. In normal sense, they are telling that now GST audit is not required. Now GST audit is not required, which has affected a lot of people. I have got lot of calls from my friends who are chartered accountants who are practicing GST and other matters, etc. They are telling, yeah, Dilip, what will we do now? The GST audit is only completely gone. I will like to tell all my dear friends is, okay, before that I'll tell you why the reason. What is the reason? What is the reason government gave for removing this particular clause? Government is telling that we saw that GST audit was done for financial year 17, 18 and 18, 19. When we saw the data, we saw that most of the taxes which the government collected, around 8,000 crores or maybe 6,000 crores, around 8,000 crores of the taxes which government collected was collected through GSTR 9. And people, while filing GSTR 9C, have paid only tax worth rupees 600 crores. Only tax worth rupees 600 crores, meaning most of the liability is already most of the liability which the registered person has to pay is already disclosed in GSTR 9. So what is the use of the chartered accountant or cost accountant? What will be, he is not giving us any amount only, meaning by we giving the right to a chartered accountant and cost accountant, we thought that will increase the revenue, will increase the tax revenue to the government, but they are not getting any benefit at all. Government is telling we are only getting benefit of 600 crores from you, but these registered person are filing GSTR 9 and paying at 8,000 crores, so we don't want you to certify the same. Let this be certified. Let GSTR 9 or reconciliation statement be certified by the company only, the registered person only. That is what they have given the reason. But these people don't know that in filing GSTR 9, it is actually suggested by chartered accountant and cost accountant only that please disclose all your liability in GSTR 9 so that we can give a clean sheet. We can give a clean sheet means what, sir? So that there should be no reconciliation error. If there is a reconciliation error, you will straight away get a notice from department. So to avoid all those things, we have suggested all of our clients that please disclose all the liabilities, undisclosed liabilities in your GSTR 9. Now the government is taking advantage of that and telling no, you don't have to get it certified by chartered accountant or cost accountant. But one more thing I'll tell you. So many CAs are unhappy with this particular removal of omission of section 35 subsection 5. But one thing I'll tell you, please note, the law is not telling that reconciliation statement is not required to be submitted. They have just told a chartered accountant or a cost accountant will not have to certify it. But it is still have to be prepared and submitted, correct? This reconciliation statement GSTR 9C is still required to be prepared and submitted. It is still required to be prepared and submitted. This will now be self-certified by the registered person only. It will have to be certified by the registered person only. Now tell me, if you are a businessman, will you go study the GST law? Will you go and study the GST law, or will you concentrate on your daily work? Will you concentrate on your business, or will you go learn the GST law, check whether this particular transaction is a supply, whether the reconciliation has been done properly or not? Because lot of activities are treated as supply under GST, but it is not treated as supply under income tax. If you are selling something to your own branch, under income tax it is not treated as supply, but under GST it is treated as supply. So there will always be a reconciliation difference. How will you be able to identify all those things? You will definitely need some support. Okay, now you may feel, no sir, we will hire someone at our place. Now hiring a person, assuming you pay 50,000, obviously you will have to hire a person who has knowledge in this field. You will pay 50,000 to him per month. You will have to pay totally 15 into 12, 6 lakh rupees. Instead of that, you will feel better I pay a chartered accountant 50,000, better I pay a cost accountant 1 lakh rupees or 50,000, whatever fees is charged by that person. Better I pay it to that person. He has an experience in that field, so let him only do the reconciliation statement for him. Let him only file my annual returns. That is what I feel. That is what I feel that this person who are doing business will take into consideration, because no one will take the risk. See, if you are a businessman, the entire risk is now on you. If there is one mistake, the department is going to send a notice to you. The department is straight away going to send a notice to you. You may feel that, oh my God, I am going to save something because the GST audit is not there. But I will tell you, the penalty which is going to be levied to you on say after 1 or 2 years is more than what you are going to save. Under GST, the penalty is very bad. Under GST, the penalty is very bad. 100% of tax, 5 times of the tax, interest, liability, etc. you will have to pay. So please be careful in deciding whatever you are deciding. Whether you want to get it done by yourself or you want to hire someone for doing this work, it is on you. You are the right person to decide about your own business. Okay, section 35 subsection 5 is now omitted. Meaning chartered accountant and cost accountant certification is not required on reconciliation statement. Now it can be self-certified by the registered person himself. Next, this is something which is good. This is one thing which is good in our budget, or the good change in GST. What is this section 50 subsection 1, sir? Section 50 talks about interest liability. If you are not filing in your return within the due date, then you are required to pay interest, which is 18% per annum or 24% per annum. 18% is if you are short disclosed your liability, and 24% is if you are excess taking input tax credit. Whatever provisions are there, we'll ignore that provisions for the time being. Now, to this section 50 subsection 1, they have added a proviso. They have inserted a proviso, and this proviso, what is more beautiful is this proviso has been inserted from retrospective effect. Again, I'll tell you one more thing. Yeah, even the section 7 subsection 1 clause AA is from retrospective effect. If you are a association and you have made supply to your members, maybe even say maybe 2 years back, that is also taxable now because it is retrospective effect. And this proviso also retrospective effect. Now the government department used to send the notices telling, if you have not filed the return within the due date, say you have made a delay of 5 days. Say your GST liability was 1 lakh rupees, you had 80,000 input tax credit. Now the net liability is how much, sir? 20,000 rupees. Before GST department, what they used to do is they used to calculate the interest on this 1 lakh rupees. They used to send notice by calculating interest on this 1 lakh rupees. Now when I have a credit available with me, why should I pay interest? When I have a credit available with me, why should I pay interest? Is what the question was raised by the different businessmen. No, so they have made an amendment in the law. They have told that if you have a credit available with you, the interest will be calculated. If you have some outward liability and your say outward liability is 1 lakh rupees and credit available is 2 lakh rupees, do you have to pay any GST in cash? No, you don't have to pay any GST in cash. If your outward say output tax liability is 1 lakh rupees and GST available, ITC available is 80,000, now you have an cash output which you have to make. You will have to pay your liability in cash. How much, sir? 20,000 is what you are going to pay in cash. Now they are telling, if you delay in filing your return, then the interest will be collected only on this 20,000 rupees. Interest will be collected only on that net output tax liability which you have paid in cash. If you have input tax credit, we are not going to collect interest. Only on the net liability which is paid by you in cash, on that amount interest will be calculated. Interest will be calculated on that amount only, provided that proviso says, provided that the interest on the tax payable in respect of supplies made during the tax period and declared in the returns for the said period furnished after the due date in accordance with the provisions of section 39 ... shall be payable on that portion of the tax which is paid by debiting the electronic cash ledger. Whatever you are paying in cash, only on that amount interest will be calculated. Then next is section 74. There is one small change which they have made under section 74. Under section 74, there is an explanation which is there, explanation 1, which is common for both section 73 and section 74. This explanation told where the notice under the same proceedings has been issued to a main person liable to pay tax and to some other person, and such proceedings against the main person are concluded under section 73-74. The proceedings against all the person liable to pay penalty under 122, 125, 129, 130 shall also be concluded. Meaning, before the provision was telling if there is any penalty you have paid under section 73 or section 74, and a same, say for a particular case they have sent you a notice under section 73 and 74, a similar case is already in proceeding, or a notice you have received under the for the same case under section 125, 122, 130, then if you have paid the penalty under 73 or 74, it will be deemed that the other proceedings are concluded, provided the person should be the same. The registered person to whom the notice are sent under two different sections should be the same. Now what they have done is, before they were talking about the proceedings under section 122, 125, 129 and 130. Now they have removed this 122 and 130 from the explanation. They have removed this from 122 and they have removed 129 and 130 from this explanation. Meaning, if a notice has been sent under 73 and 74 and the same proceedings and the same case is also the notice has been sent under 122 or 125, only then it is applicable. If there is a notice under 129 and 130, sir, what is this 129 and 130? It talks about detention, seizure, release of goods and conveyance in transit. Your vehicle is moving, you are having some goods in the vehicles, you are not having any invoice attached. The person who is carrying, the person in charge of the conveyance is not carrying invoices. The department has the power to seize your goods. The department has the power to seize your goods. Now, on these goods, they will start recovery proceedings separately. They will not follow the proceedings under 73 or 74. They will start issuing notices to you separately, and all the proceedings will be held separately. Section 130 talks about confiscation. Section 129, they will detain and they will confiscate under 130. So now under 129 and 130 they can issue notices to you separately, even if there is a notice which is already given to you under section 173 for the same matter or for the different matter. They have the right to issue notice under 129. Then section 175, section 75, section 75, an explanation has been inserted. What is this explanation, sir? Now, before it was section 75 subsection 12 was telling, notwithstanding to anything contained in 73 or 74 where an amount of self-assessed tax in accordance with the return under section 39 remains unpaid, either wholly or partly, or any amount of interest payable on such taxes remains unpaid, the same shall be recovered with the provisions of section 79. 79 is talking about recovery provisions. Now what they are telling, before section 75 subsection 12 was talking only about section 39, return which is filed by you under section 39. If you are filing your return under section 39, which is called as GSTR 3B, if you are not filing your GSTR 3B, then only we have the power to collect tax from you and interest from you. I will give you a notice and collect tax and interest from you. Now they are telling, so because of this, what people used to do, no, there are two types of return. One is GSTR 1 and one is GSTR 3B. What people used to do, because there is no penalty for GSTR 3B, GSTR 1, because there is no amount which you have to pay at the time of filing GSTR 1, people used to file GSTR 1 on regular basis, and they were not filing GSTR 3B. They were not paying the taxes. They were showing the outward supply, but they are not filing the returns of GSTR 3B where they have to make the payment of taxes. Now they have changed this and included section 37 and 39, both of this. Now they are telling whether if you have filed your GSTR1 and the data is not shown in your GSTR3B, that amount which is shown in GSTR1, on that amount I can collect taxes and I can also levy interest and penalty from you. Section 37 talks about GSTR1, 39 talks about GSTR3B, 79 talks about recovery of taxes. I'll read this explanation which has been inserted now. For the purpose of this subsection, the expression self-assessed tax shall include the tax payable in respect of details of outward supplies furnished under section 37 but not included under section 39. Meaning now self-assessed tax does not means only those amount of taxes which is shown by you under section 39. Self-assessed tax shall also include the tax or the details of which you have shown under GSTR1 but not under GSTR3B. Next, section 83. Section 83. Now this is also an scary proceedings, very see, some of the law which they have made now are very bad. Some of the changes which are made is very bad in the sense it is going to affect us drastically. Now before, what government had the power is, government had the power, say if there is any, so this is talking about attachment of property. The government has the power to attach the property including your bank account in some cases only, in case of assessment and in case of demand and recovery. Whenever an assessment is done, only then they can attach the property, whenever including the bank account. Whenever there is a demand and recovery, chapter 15 provisions were applicable, only they could only at that time they could attach your property. But now they are telling, even in case when there is a search, seizure, inspection or arrest which has been done, even in such cases we will be able to attach your property. And before, attachment could have been done only of the taxable person, Now they are telling we will also attach the property or will also collect the tax amount from any person who is specified under section 122 subsection 1A in such manner as may be prescribed. Before, they were attaching the property of a taxable person. Now they are telling, if there is any other person who is getting benefited because of this taxable person, I will attach that person's property also. I'll read the law which was there before and which is there after, so that you will understand this provision better. Say, where during the pendency of any proceedings under 62, 63, 64, 67, 73, 74, the commissioner is of the opinion that for protecting the interest of government revenue, it is necessary to do so, he may, by order in writing, provisionally attach any property including the bank account belonging to taxable person in such manner as may be prescribed. The commissioner has the power to provisionally attach the property of the taxable person, which includes the bank account also. Now please note, attachment of bank account is very bad. The provision with regard to attachment of bank account is very bad, meaning you can actually deposit money in your account but you cannot withdraw anything. That account will be locked permanently. Okay, it will be locked unless until say you give notice or you pay the taxes, etc. Now a person will not be able to do business because of this reason. Because of this reason, a person will not be able to do business at all. If my bank account is only attached where all the transactions are happening, how will I do the business? Person will not be able to do business. Very risky provision. Now they are telling, where after initiation of any proceeding under chapter 12, chapter 14 or chapter 15, the commissioner is of the opinion. So there is a new chapter added. Which chapter, sir? Chapter 14. What is this chapter 14 talking about? Inspection, search, seizure and arrest. The commissioner is of the opinion that to protect the interest of revenue ... he may by an order in writing attach provisionally any property including the bank account belonging to the taxable person or any person specified in section 122 subsection 1A in such manner as may be prescribed. Who are the persons specified under section 122 1A I have given, which you can see once I'll share this way. I will also upload this material. You can go through who are the different person included over here. Okay, section 73, 74, 83. Okay, section 129. Section 129, the detention provision, some changes they have made. No, they have made a change in the penalty also. Section 129 talks about the penalty which you have to pay for releasing the goods which has been detained by the government. The government has the power to detain your goods. If you want to release those goods which are detained by the government, you have to pay some penalty. Before, the penalty provision was very lenient. But now the amount of penalty which the government is going to collect from you is going to kill you. The amount of penalty which the government is going to collect from you is going to kill you. Sir, why are you telling like this, sir? It is going to kill you because before, government had the power, or the department, in the sense that department had the power to collect penalty equal to 100% of tax. Okay, government had the power to collect what, sir? Penalty equal to 100% of the tax. Now they are telling government has the power to collect penalty equal to 200% of the tax. If you want to say take back the goods which is detained by the department, then you will have to pay 200% penalty, 200% of the tax amount. Before it was only 100%. Now they are telling you should pay the taxes. Pay penalty equal to 100% of taxes. See, you should pay the taxes. They are not telling that you should not pay the taxes. You should pay whatever taxes are applicable. You should pay the taxes. Apart from the taxes which you are paying, you should pay 100% penalty. That was what the provision was telling before. If the owner of the goods is coming forward and telling, sir, this goods belong to me, then tax amount plus 100% of the tax amount. Now they are telling you should pay whatever applicable tax is there and also pay 200% of the tax amount as penalty, which is very bad. The goods are belonging to me. You have detained it because of some reasons. I am giving you all the documents to you now, but you are not accepting the document. You are straight away telling I will levy a penalty of 200%, etc., which is very bad. Now this is when the owner comes forward to say pay the taxes and penalty. Sir, what if owner does not come forward to pay the taxes and penalty? In such cases, before the provision was telling he shall be liable to pay tax, whatever applicable tax is there, and penalty equal to 50% of value of goods. Before, if I am not the owner of the goods and I go tell, sir, I want these goods, okay, I am going forward and telling that I want to take these goods. In such cases, I was liable to pay the tax amount plus 50% of the value of the goods. 50% of the value of the goods was what penalty was I was supposed to pay. But now they are telling you will have to pay the tax amount, whatever is there. He will have to pay a penalty equal to 50% of the value of goods or 200% of the tax payable thereon, whichever is higher. You will have to pay. See, before you should pay the taxes, whatever taxes is applicable, that you have to pay the same amount of taxes. But now you will have to pay a penalty also. That penalty can be 50% of the value of goods or 200%, or what's that, 200% of the tax which is payable on those goods, whichever is higher. Okay, next one more changes, and I think this is the last change, and this change is with regard to IGST law. Section 16 gives the definition of zero rated supply under IGST law. Section 16 says zero rated supply means the following. Zero rated supply means export of goods or services or supply made to an SEZ unit or SEZ location. This was the definition which was given earlier. What was the definition, sir? Whatever supply you are making to an SEZ unit or SEZ location shall be treated as zero rated supply. Whatever export of goods or export of services which you are doing shall be treated as zero rated supply. Now they have changed the definition. Change the definition means those who are supplying to SEZ units or SEZ location, that is SEZ developer or SEZ unit. Now you should be very careful. Before, whatever kind of supply you make to an SEZ unit or SEZ developer, that those were treated as zero rated supply. But now they are telling whatever export of goods and services are anyway zero rated supply, but the supply made to an SEZ unit or SEZ developer shall be treated as zero rated supply only if those supply which is made by you is used for authorized operation. They are used for authorized operation. Whatever supply you are making before, whatever type of supply you make to SEZ unit or SEZ location, SEZ developer, that was treated as zero rated supply. Therefore, you can take refund. You were able to take refund of the taxes which is paid by you. Now, though you are making a supply to an SEZ unit or SEZ developer, that will not be called as zero rated supply unless until it is used for authorized operation. Now how will I come to know for what operation they are using? How will I come to know for what purpose the SEZ unit or SEZ developer is using it? We should get a declaration that I am using it for my authorized operation only. How many SEZ will provide the same, sir? How many SEZ will provide the same? Now the existing provisions are only very difficult, that we should take a seal from the SEZ unit that these goods are actually delivered to them. Now we should also take a declaration from them that they are used by them for their authorized operations. What is the law telling? Section 16 has of IGST Act is been amended so as to zero rated supply of goods or services to SEZ developer or SEZ unit only when the said supply is for authorized operation. I will call a supply which is made by you to a SEZ unit or SEZ developer as a zero rate supply only when it is used by them for authorized operation. Then section 16 subsection 3, section 16 subsection 3, which presently the provision told that registered person making zero rated supply had two options, to supply with payment of tax or supply without payment of tax under letter of undertaking. Now what changes they have made? Normally you can make supply with payment of tax or without payment of tax. For taking the refund, there was a condition that you should receive the amount within the period specified under FEMA, say within the period of 1 year, which is specified under FEMA. Now if you don't receive the amount within 1 year, then the refund which is given to you will be taken back by the department. If you don't receive the amount within the period specified by the FEMA, they will give you a grace days of 30 days. If you don't receive this amount within that in convertible foreign currency within that period, then the officer or the department will take back the refund which is given to you along with interest. Take back the refund which is given to you along with interest. So these two provisions are only going to affect those people who are making supply to an SEZ unit or SEZ location, or who are making zero rated supply and claiming some refund. What is the new provision? Restrict the zero rated supply on payment of integrated tax only to notified class of taxpayer or notified supply of goods and services, and they are linking the foreign exchange remittance in case of export of goods with refund. Before, for export of goods, it was not linked to receipt of amount. For export of goods, they were telling, if you have that bill of export copy with you, I will give you the refund. Now they are telling, sir, your bill of export is okay, but we also want the amount to be received within the period specified. That is, in case of non-realization of sale proceed within 30 days from the end of the expiry of the time limit prescribed under FEMA, it would be liable. The registered person would be liable to deposit the refund so received along with the applicable interest amount. They will have to give back the refund along with the interest applicable for the refund. It is 24% interest they will have to pay, etc. They will have to pay this interest also. Okay, so friends, these were the major changes which had taken place with regard to GST in the recent amendment, recent Finance Act. I hope you liked it. If you are liking this kind of video, normally GST department keeps on conducting their GST council meeting. Now because this is my first video, I don't know whether it was good enough, my explanation was proper or not. I request you to please give me feedback. Whether it is positive feedback or negative feedback, it will not concern me. Please give me feedback. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.